We're here at the 7th Conference on Pathogenesis, Treatment, and Prevention, the IAS meeting that is occurring right now in Kuala Lumpur. We're here with Mr. Sikwese. Kenley, and we are really interested in your perspective on the World Health Organization's just having given their guidelines, evolved from the committees and so forth, and you're involved in that process. And I wanted to get your sense of where it went, how it got there, and how you feel about where we are with those guidelines.
Well, Fred, thank you very much for having me on this discussion panel, or discussion in general. I am very excited to be where we are right now, to actually have the guidelines out. It's a very exciting prospect because it's been a long journey. But it was, as you probably heard during the launch, it was a very wide consultative process. So many people were involved, from civil society, from governments, from researchers, from clinicians. It was a very, very widely resourced piece of work. So I'm really excited. And you had one of the interesting things was that you had all these different, and people living with HIV, by the way, I might add. One of the interesting things that was really unique about these guidelines is that we were able to bring these different opinions and very strong opinions together into what we have today as the final guidelines. So it was a very exciting journey for me, and it's really the birth of something that should impact the HIV epidemic in the world moving on.
And how do you believe this will be translated into your community? You're from Zambia, so give us a sense of what your sense of, or how your community will accept this and embrace it and use them as a guideline.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, one of the things we have said to WHO as AFROCAB especially is that this consultative process that they have set in motion at the global level is something they need to also replicate at country and regional level, or regional and country level, so that the engagement, the discussions of the stakeholders are part of that implementation process. What that will really then be able to do is be able to take on board the various concerns that people from different perspectives will be able to bring into a country level implementation, or what they call adaptation process. Now, if you take a country like Zambia, we are in the unique position of actually having moved a little forward in terms of maybe expanding treatment access. At the 350 threshold, we're already at about over 80%.
Wow!
So you really are talking about there was very little added value that we could have had at the 350 threshold, because some of the people that are not being reached are people who either don't know their status or are hard to reach areas. And so the threshold moving to 500 actually provides a very big opportunity for government to expand their treatment to a much wider people. And it will have the benefits for people's health. It will have the benefits for transmission in a public health sense, and it will also reduce the number of deaths that we are experiencing. Because right now, the people who are dying are people who are dying from TB. So, and some of this TB is occurring at thresholds of 350. And I think if you remember the HPTN study, in HPTN 052 study, you will remember that there were incidents or episodes of TB even in that study.
Do you think that's because they were bounced down low and then come back up, or they weren't reported properly? It seems like it's a pretty high number to have TB, active TB.
Absolutely. Well, we don't. I'm not a clinician, of course. Yeah. What I can talk to is some observational and experiential stuff that maybe I may have witnessed. What we have seen, for instance, and this is where again these guidelines are going to be very critical. The people are dropping very fast and very rapidly in some instances, that when they actually are in the monitoring stage waiting initiation at 350, and they go to clinics for monitoring every 6 months, and they're about 500.
A lot can happen in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you find that within that 6 months, there will have been 515, 600, and then within that period of 6 months, they're below 350. and or within that same period they have maybe some TB or something like that. So these guidelines,
or maybe another opportunistic infection,
or some other,
absolutely,
absolutely, and this is very critical. And this is, maybe they begin to have some symptoms like rashes, for instance, or something else. And so these guidelines will begin to prevent those episodes from occurring in a very, very regular, with a much wider population of people living with HIV.
Because there's only 100 numbers to 200, 150 to 200
yes.
From the 350. And so if you can get them up to that other higher number, then showing that they're starting to drop
yes.
wouldn't be in a crucial area.
Absolutely, absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. And this is where I think for Zambia, again, our government is beginning to think in terms of actually a more test and treat approach. Although we're really thinking about treatment as prevention, and we've had consultations, national consultations about treatment as prevention, but they're really thinking if we're really going to hit this epidemic, we should really think about test and treat.
I think that's been mentioned several times.
Absolutely.
Since this launch of the guidelines,
yes.
I've heard, I think Sikwese said something like that, and I think, who was it? Was it Gottfried? A few other people have said that. So it's been bandied about that maybe, and under certain circumstances, it makes good sense to do it, especially where there's partners involved and so forth.
Absolutely. For prevention of transmission to the partners, in fact, there's already guidance in the market from WHO to initiate treatment to the discordant in discordant couples to the positive partner to prevent transmission to the negative partner. So we know there is a lot that is already happening in that sense.
Right. Do you feel that there's anything that we need to have as ammunition to prevent to keep this process moving forward, as far as governments signing on and just saying, okay, yes, we're going to embrace this on a panel and so forth?
Well, Fred, what really, really needs to happen is now to mobilize. And I mean mobilize at every level. At the national level, at the regional level, at the continental level. Absolutely. We need to begin to engage with our governments to mobilize resources at the local level, and all the donors, all the big donors, all the PEPFARs and the EUs coming on board to really hit this HIV hard. And I think if we can hit it hard and back it up with the resources that are required to reach the 15 million by 2015, we will definitely make a big difference.
In the loss of life and the health of people that need to be at work.
Absolutely, absolutely, and improve the quality of people right through and be able to look after their children.
Thank you so much, Kenley.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Okay.